you for tuning in today. If you've ever attended one of our trainings, you'll know that I talk about oral language quite a bit. And people say, well, this is a reading training. Why are you talking about oral language? You should be talking about letters. And the reality is that phonics is the code to our language. It's, P says P, and, how to spell the sound if it's in box versus if it's in sock. Those are phonics rules. Now, phonics is very, very, very important. Don't get me wrong. However, if you've never heard a word before, phonics will only get you so far. So phonics helps you to sound out a word, but your oral language exposure helps you figure out if it's right. Because most of the words in English have options. So I could read pilot as pilot, or I could read it as pilot. Technically, those would both be correct according to phonics rules, because camel is not camel, right? So how does a kid know whether it's pilot or pilot? And the reality is they have to have heard the word pilot before. Because if they say, why isn't it pilot? And I would say, because pilot isn't a word. So kids really have to have exposure. So a lot of times, I just was working with a third grade science class, and they were like, that word is fillings. And I'm like, no, it's filings. But the reality was they didn't know what a filing was. So even though they tried to break it correctly, because it doesn't have the same rule as fillings, it didn't have a meaning for them. So it was very hard for them to understand what that word was. Because unless you've heard a word before, you don't know how to accent it. You don't know whether, if you see conduct in isolation, you don't know whether it's a noun or a verb. Is it conduct? Is it conduct? It's because you hear it from your parents and from books that people read to you, that you have television and lots of other different exposures to words, that those things make you a better reader. So when parents say to me, I've been reading to my child since birth, but they're having trouble reading, they're not having trouble with their oral language. They're having trouble with the code, which is phonics. But then there are some kids who don't have a problem with phonics, but they lack exposure and they haven't learned all of these words in our language. So oral language is extremely important. So at every opportunity, talk to your child, read above their level so that when their phonics catches up to their oral language, they recognize those words. And don't stop reading to them after elementary school, because you can get books on tape, you can read to them when they're older, and it'll give them a lot of opportunity to hear words that they wouldn't necessarily know how to pronounce. So thank you very much for tuning in today.